The Brandon Peters Show may contain explicit language and detailed plot points. For more information on the show, stay tuned to the end of the episode.
It's the summer of 93 at 30.
Welcome to the Brandon Peters Show and the continued adventures of the summer of 93 at 30. A weekend-by-weekend look at the movies released during the summer of 1993. And as always with me, from 82 to 93, it's Scott Mendelson and me. He's from the Rap. And
this time, we have an interloper.
And that interloper is from We Live Entertainment Variety. Why So Blue, host of Out Now with Aaron and Abe. It's Aaron Neuwirth.
93, summer of 93. It is a going, and the films we are showing are okay.
Yeah, there you go. Today we're discussing
Took me a second.
4 films that opened July 30th to August 1st weekend. So we're ending July and beginning the August, rounding into the final turn or final month.
It's the final countdown. We're leaving together. That's the only lyric I know. And something. Fuck it.
See, the point is that they've heard us weekly, so they're used to this. This is a highlight for them. Like, it's downhill after we do this.
There's less singing in this particular state, so we need to up the singing in the last.
There's if anything, there's a lot of singing. So because of the fucking movie that we have to talk about.
I just mean in the podcast. I think there was more
used to
impromptu musical numbers in the 80s one.
Yeah, they were going to make a soundtrack
Step It Up,
for the last
Neuwirth.
one. Yeah.
Oh, I assume that Brandon's editing all these where the music is just piled on.
Right.
Constantly.
That works.
But in all fairness, Scott, we had musicals that last summer. There are like
That is true.
none here.
Until now. Oh boy.
Yes. But first, as always, we start with the news.
When I wake up, don't you know I'm gonna be the man who brings the news to you.
The mafia is suspected in a car bomb attack last night in a swank residential neighborhood of Rome. At least 23 people were hurt there, 50 cars destroyed, and a building badly damaged. Police say a television talk show host who was passing by at the time may have been the target.
Who died?
All right. Well, if you want to start there, no.
Start there.
Well, Scott, since you were wondering, on July 6th, a Boeing 737-500 crashes into South Korea and 66 are killed.
Now who's the asshole?
Smash that subscribe button.
Oh, yep. Same day, the first of 4 photos of Mars is taken by the Mars Observer just under a month before the spacecraft failed in flight.
Okay.
Hello, Mars. On July 27th, Javier Sotomayor jumps a world record of 2.45 meters high. Like
Nice.
Scott did that in high school, though. So, I don't
Yes.
know. Also on July 27th, the Mafia bombs the historical buildings in Rome, Milan, and the Vatican City. Scott killing 5. So,
First off, there is no mafia, so I don't know what you're talking
but there is a Mafia Mama. But judging by her box office, she could not afford to.
By this time, you will definitely be able to watch it on VOD.
Well, judging by her box office, she did have bombs. So,
Touche.
there we go.
And they weren't just car bombs in 1970s Cleveland.
If they called it Cosa Nostra Granny, that might have been more.
Huh. So, July 27th, NBC TV is awarded the 1996 Olympic coverage for $456 million.
And what coverage it was.
If I recall, was a bargain in the end.
Gotcha. On July 29th, Cincinnati Reds pitcher Thomas Browning is arrested for, take a guess, Aaron.
Murder.
You're not Aaron.
Murder.
Scott?
Arson.
Marijuana possession.
Oh, that's not
With an M.
It was close. You guys are marijuana possession. July 29th. Yeah.
Everybody thinks they're Robert Mitchum.
Oh, July 29th, Israeli Court of Appeals overturns 5-0 the conviction of John Demjajuk, saying not enough evidence. He is the concentration camp Ivan the Terrible. So this guy was on trial because, like, I think you're that guy, and they're like, I don't think so. So
I hope that movie of the week's coming though.
yeah.
The good news is he's almost certainly dead now.
Yes.
Old age.
Yeah. Speaking of something that happens in old age, July 29th, Walter Koenig, who played Mr. Chekhov in Star Trek, suffers a mild heart attack. He's still kicking today.
I like how that's newsworthy.
July 31st.
I'm sure back then what he thought might be his last words were "fuck you, Shatner."
Was this Chekhov's
Just
heart
in
attack?
case.
It wasn't Chekhov's heart attack. It did not come back in the on July 31st, Prince Ronald Ronnie Matubi crowned King of Uganda.
Mazel.
Classic Robbie.
Yeah. Okay. On July 31st, the Allman Brothers Band guitarist Diggy Betts is arrested for Aaron.
Possession?
Scott.
Arson.
Now it is murder?
Shoving 2 cops.
Oh, well, good for you.
Yes. On July 31st, Toronto Blue Jays obtained future Baseball Hall of Fame Ricky Henderson. He's in the news. We always have Ricky from Oakland.
Kill them bases.
Yes, in exchange for minor leaguers Steve Carsey and Jose Herrera. So good job, A's, because I don't know who the hell those two are, but we all know Ricky Henderson. On August 1st, 14-time Major League Baseball All-Star Reggie Jackson is inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York.
Good.
This despite trying to murder the Queen several years earlier.
That's a gun joke, right? That's what I'm
Yes.
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 Okay.
I hope. Otherwise, it's slander.
Like, I'm okay with the first one as far as remembering it. Like, I get fuzzier with 2 and with 2.5 and 33 and a third.
I remember 33 and 30 was like, it's the bomb.
Yeah.
I remember that part. So deaths this week. Screenwriter Daniel Fuchs, who wrote The Hard Way. NBA Celtics legend Reggie Lewis. Daniel Myrick, an American saxophonist who did the song If Leaving Me Is Easy, One More Night. He's fatally shot by police during a narcotics investigation at 53. Ooh. John Castrios, the first. And why is this guy who's John Castrios? Well, he was the first murder in Washington, New Hampshire in 200 years. You got to erase that chalkboard.
Reggie Lewis, because I had to look this up. He died at the age of 27, having a cardiac arrest on the basketball court during a game, during a practice.
Yeah.
No, it had nothing to do with any of his quote unquote behavior. He just he's one of those unlucky bastards that had a heart defect.
Gotcha.
Like John Riddard.
Jeez. Birthdays this week. Rapper Stormzy. Gossip Girl star Taylor Momsen. Golfer Jordan Spieth and NFL quarterback Dak Prescott, all born this week in 1993.
I didn't realize Spieth was that young. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He was just in the Masters.
Little baby Spieth. So, yeah, there we are. And so we'll move on to our first movie, Tom and Jerry, the movie.
After 50 years, Tom and Jerry are coming to theaters in their very first major motion picture. Why not share the fun with your family? It's Tom and Jerry, the movie. Rated G. Now playing.
Directed by Phil Roman, written by Dennis Marks, William Hanna, and Joseph Barbera, starring Richard Kind, Dana Hill, Andy McAfee, Rip Taylor, and Henry Gibson. Cat and mouse duo Tom and Jerry reluctantly work together to save a young girl from her evil aunt. All right, Aaron, tell us about Tom and Jerry.
Well, I admired that it had an opening credit scene, which is always fun for me in animated movies, especially like this, where it's like, oh, they really want us to know, right? My eyes did light up when Richard Kind entered the frame. Like I completely forgot that he. So I think I've seen this movie, like, I don't know in full, but I know I've seen parts of it because I can specifically remember the part where they're like, "How come you never talked before?" And he's like, "Well, I just never had anything to say." And I'm like, "Oh, screenwriting team, you guys."
No, this ain't continuity.
But yeah, Richard Kind popped in there, and I'm like, "Oh, great, that's fun." I had just seen Beau is Afraid, so it's like, I got plenty of Kind in my life right now, and it's always nice to get Kind.
The right kind of kind.
Yeah,
She was kind.
He brings a lot of he brings a lot of big Kind energy. Richard does. Is this the only animated film that has to be banned in Tibet? I'm just curious.
Oh God, I didn't think about the political implications of that.
This movie is like
this ain't playing in China.
This is like bad. It's maybe, I guess, like a little better than Once Upon a Forest, but it's the kind of movie where this could be any other movie and I wouldn't say it'd be better, but it would like make sense to me. But because it's Tom and Jerry, I'm like, so they're talking and they're decidedly not doing any antics that are akin to Tom and Jerry. So what am I watching for 83 minutes? And it's this weird, like, reluctant buddy comedy with occasional songs that are listenable. There's like nothing going on that's not a retread of, like you already mentioned, The Rescuers or anything else that's just, really clever. It's just like, well, they drew this and it looks like the old cartoon series, but it doesn't sound or feel or do anything else that inspires you to be like, oh yeah, that's my Tom and Jerry, all right. Like, say what you will about that WB version that came out a couple years ago, which is also, bad.
Wait. You mean the film that saved movie theaters?
One of six.
Show some goddamn respect, Neuwirth.
One of six films saved movie theaters and was also, I believe, the first simultaneous streaming Max/theatrical release.
One of the first. The Little Things did not save theaters.
Hold on, Tom and Jerry came out before Little Things, didn't it?
No, it was. I
don't think you're
February. Late February.
Tom and Jerry was a January movie, wasn't it?
No. Judah and the Last Messiah and Little Things were first, along with Wonder Woman. That's its own can of worms.
Fair enough. Well, Wonder Woman's like the
that was in December, yeah.
But yeah, this movie, like, whatever, that movie, it's not good either. But at least it's like Tom and Jerry should like not talk and should like constantly be in a spy versus spy game of one-upsmanship against each other. That's something. This movie's just like, what if we didn't do any of that? It made this like generic plot with other characters that are seemingly upstaging Tom and Jerry any chance they give them to. And then I guess they're involved also and they talk. The end. Songs. They go to Tibet for some reason.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this movie, like, it's almost like there was this other animated movie and they were like, hey, could we erase those two main characters and draw Tom and Jerry there and then just like try to sell this? Because like right at the beginning, there is a scene literally where they're like Jerry talks and then Tom's like, you talked? And they're like, you talked? I'm like, oh no, this is not going to go well. And like boredom. Like they were singing. There was some guy that was like their answer to like, well, I guess, Indiana Jones or Launchpad McQuack are popular. And this guy literally was like the human version of Launchpad McQuack drawn, flying this plane. I can't tell, like, this was just dull. I'll say something nice. Foley work was pretty good on this.
I could hear every line of dialogue. Fuck you, Chris Nolan.
Like, there's some good sound effects and stuff like that, but this is like dull as shit.
What week is putting out this episode? What is this? July what?
This is end of July, beginning of August.
Okay, so Scott's saying fuck Chris Nolan the weekend that Oppenheimer comes out. Is that what I'm hearing?
Oppenheimer will have already been out for
it'll been out.
So he's in the consciousness. Like if everybody's had a week to let that settle in.
Better be able to hear that.
And here comes Scott Mendelson trying to trash our show.
Yep.
Like, let me tarnish this name really quick just to keep that audience going.
There you go.
I drove down to Vegas in the middle of a pandemic to see Tenet. I sat in the middle of the biggest IMAX theater in Las Vegas with my hearing aids on full blast, and I still missed 40% of the dialogue.
Yeah, I saw it.
It's not like your problems.
I saw it in a 70 millimeter IMAX theater with 8 other patrons, and I heard it fine. So
can we just keep talking about Tenet for like 20 minutes instead of Tom and Jerry the movie?
Tenet and Jerry.
I would like when Aaron Taylor Johnson just steps in and it's like, oh man, this guy's like, he's okay in lead roles, but supporting roles like this, yes, give me more of this.
Yes, he's so good. Just like Bullet Train, just like yeah.
Kenneth Branagh's accent impeccable, just like that other episode we did.
And dude, Elizabeth Debicki in IMAX is just, I mean, she's tall.
It's why you need IMAX, because she's so fucking tall.
It's like crazy.
It's the two things. It's the two things that they said are actually to scale when you see them in IMAX cameras is Optimus Prime and Elizabeth Debicki.
Yep. It's true. It's true. But yeah, this, I was like, at some point, like the first song in here doesn't come for like a while, and I'm like, oh, we have a song, and then it was like, oh, now we have 2 songs, 3. Okay, we are.
Yeah, it really like it builds right away into the songs once they get going.
Yeah, once they get going, they start. But I think the first one was like 20 minutes in.
Yeah, you get
like,
your
It
time.
wasn't like we had an intro song to let us know, hey, you're in the middle of a musical. It was just like, oh, this person's singing. Oh, okay, then we're gonna.
I guess that's what Sweeney Todd should have done. I guess should have held on.
Yeah.
That timely Sweeney Todd reference I just made.
Scott, why was it that you liked Tom and Jerry so much?
Well, I think by default, I actually did prefer this to the live action one a couple years ago, just because I found that one to be incredibly annoying.
They can both be that way.
Yeah,
that is true. I mean, look, don't watch either of them. But I mean, I guess all due respect, save movie theaters, yada yada yada. Also, Chloe Moritz in a suit, so you know it's got something going for it. What I found amusing about this film, the film itself is not funny, but every time I tried to imagine this film with not Tom and Jerry but Roadrunner and Coyote, it became even funnier.
So you prefer this movie because you imagined a different movie while you were watching it. That makes sense.
Well, no. That was just sort of a weird bonus that I was sort of amusing myself to pass the time.
Yeah, that's
less
your
painful
reason.
than putting cigarettes on my arm.
That's what you're saying. That makes you prefer this movie to an entirely different movie because of some other third movie.
Oh no! It's that's a digression. It's a different topic. We've moved on. No, I mean this. You guys are right. This is basically a generic, adventure cartoon that happens to involve Tom and Jerry plucked in. And it is very funny unintentionally to have a Tom and Jerry story with, perilous rescues, fiery peril, an evil character screaming at a child, your father is dead, which, are not things you expect to see in a fucking Tom and Jerry movie. It's not even that, this is a dark, serious Tom and Jerry movie. It's just a garden variety assembly line cartoon of that era.
It ramps into that too, though, where it starts out where it's just like, hey, they're fighting and there's a house or whatever, and then they're like, oh, now we're strays, and we get involved in a cartoonishly evil. It's literally a cartoon, but a cartoonishly evil plot involving evil mothers and what have you.
And there's another point in the movie, really right toward the end, where they get caught in the fiery peril. It's like, obviously, they're not going to die, but how fucking hysterical would it have been if they died?
Like minus the fact that there's no humor in this movie that's appealing. It's basically like Beavis and Butthead, where they're just like they just happen to get involved in this other plot,
right?
Thomas and Jerry do America or do Tibet. But no, I mean this film is this is the kind of movie which is why people still associate animation with kids flicks. Yeah. Because this is what was standard and expected for a mainstream theatrical cartoon. Even, up into the, yes, the Katzenberg Renaissance sort of changed the game on that a little bit. But for every one of those, you were still getting a Fievel Goes West or a Tom and Jerry the movie. American Tail is excellent, not so much Fievel Goes West.
Yeah, what's sad? Like I saw this in the theater. And I didn't like it then. And it was 11 and too cool, but I remember my mom.
Did you get sold out of Rising Sun?
11's pretty old to be going to the theater to see Tom and Jerry, Brandon.
Yeah. Well, my sister was like 6, so that's probably what happened. I was just there for a summer, and well, guess what? Can't really drive or go anywhere cool.
You know what she would have enjoyed even more? Rising Sun.
Mm-hmm.
Probably. Chang
No,
Sung is pretty cool. But we'll talk about that later.
The one other vaguely nice thing I will say is that
what is the first nice thing that you said? I'm waiting for the reason why you prefer this movie to the other one. Because the other one, if you subtract the stuff that doesn't work in the other one, you still have the Tom and Jerry stuff, which I think is legit good in that movie.
That is fair. I was so annoyed. It's an interesting animated choice in that movie.
And
instead of just making it a movie. Instead of just making it a movie where, Chloe Moritz plays a befuddled hotel person who tries to do well at her job, they make it stupidly complicated where she faked her resume and isn't actually supposed to.
That movie's bad. We've established that movie's bad.
Yeah,
but the stuff that's called Tom and Jerry that involves Tom and Jerry, I think that stuff works. I'm like, what is the thing here that you're like, at least it has this? I haven't heard that. What is that thing? You're saying at least this movie has that. What do you subtract from this? It's like, well, if you take all this away, at least this part's here. What is that in this movie?
They're both terrible. Why are we having this debate?
Well, because you started off by saying you prefer the other one, or you prefer this one.
I think I expected more from the other one. I don't know. Maybe because
Why?
I don't know. Because I still think that maybe Tim Story isn't going to pull the football this time.
After Ride Along 2, you're like, oh man, he's back again with Tom.
Exactly. I think this time he's not going to pull the football, but he always pulls the damn football. I should have given up after Shaft, but Shaft for white people.
Well, the 2010s Shaft, not the 2000 Shaft, not Shaft.
Well, that one's fucking awesome.
That one rocks, but not the Tim Story Shaft with too much Shaft to handle is the tagline.
Yes, exactly. I do feel, by default, it is interesting to see the Tom and Jerry characters painted and animated in comparatively bigger budget, lush theatrical animation with a certain depth of that you're not used to in the old cartoons. But that's the nicest thing.
Like the ambition of the 2021 one. And
yes, we get it. You love the 2021 one.
I'm not.
It's okay.
What this thing is that you're praising for this movie. I hope I'm this angry for every other review we do today.
Aaron's HBO Max back then was like, hey, since you like Tom and Jerry, you should watch Tom and Jerry. Again.
We all know that they have it on that very popular MGM Plus. That's where all the Tom and Jerry, the old Tom and Jerry is. A network that exists.
Yes, it does.
It has a show that got a second season. I'm like, there's a streaming service for this to begin with?
Wow.
What's the show?
It's what show is it? It has Harold Perrineau, I believe, in it.
Oh. Walt! The show?
But yeah, this
watch out up there. That's him in The Edge. That's.
I think we've spent way too much time talking around Tom and Jerry because there's not really much to talk about.
2 didn't like it, and Scott liked it.
I didn't like it. It's no House of Cards.
Oh, it surely isn't.
Which is going to be really confusing to people who don't watch the entire summer of '93 thing, and
the Tom and Jerry fans that tune in for this one, finally a podcast to talk about 1992's Tom and Jerry. Yes, it's a '92 movie, but it didn't come out till '93.
Yeah, that's what it came out in Germany in '92, and they're like, okay, we got the festival buzz going. Now it's releasing a summer later.
Oh gosh. All right.
Miramax too. It's a Miramax release, which really threw me off. I'm like, okay.
Who was abused in the making of Tom and Jerry?
Wait, what?
What's his name?
I thought you were pulling an Incredible Journey type situation.
Who plays the captain that comes in midway through? What's his face?
Incredible Journey. That's the one where they kill all the cats and dogs, right?
Yeah, I'm talking
Is that
about
Milo Notice?
That's Milo Notice. Yeah.
Okay, right. My mistake.
I'm not talking about animal abuse. I'm talking about human abuse behind the scenes.
I am.
It's Miramax. Anyway, let's get the fuck off Tom and Jerry.
Taylor. That's what I'm trying to
Rip, yeah, okay. So yeah, Tom and Jerry. No,
it's mediocre.
That's kind. Richard Kind. All right.
Exactly. And Tony J. I'll listen to him read the phone book.
Gotcha. All right. Well, let's move on to the TV ratings for this week.
Who on earth
I just shot my kids.
could aim a gun
I need your help with the puzzle.
and shoot 3 small children?
I don't want you to be a daddy. I just want you to love me.
Farrah Fawcett in her most challenging role. Deviant sociopath.
You be your mom.
A chilling true story of passion
I just could not get away from Diane.
and murder.
I can't.
Small Sacrifices, a special 2-part series, November 12th and 14th.
Coming in at number 1, according to Nielsen ratings this week, Small Sacrifices Part 2 is a miniseries from 1989. It stars Farrah Fawcett, Ryan O'Neal, John Shea, Emily Perkins, and it is about a peculiar and disturbing case catches the attention of the police when a young mother and her children, all severely injured, show up in a hospital's emergency room. So, yeah, that's what a mysterious case.
Did they show part 1 last week, or is that coming up on the thing?
They must have. It must have, and then it picked up in the ratings or something. But looks like John
this is
Shea,
a Susan
Farrah
Smith
Fawcett
before
hookup.
Susan Smith situation.
Hmm.
Yeah, this is
That's too old of a reference.
spoilers. She tried to kill her own children in disguise as a carjacking.
Oh, okay.
Which I guess is slightly better than Susan Smith, who drowned her children and tried to disguise it as a carjacking.
Yeah, that okay. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Stop bringing the fun. Jeez.
Ooh, so number 2,
Down the hilarity.
we have a tie at number 2 with 60 Minutes on CBS and an airing of the Deadpool on ABC.
Woohoo!
Dirty Harry film. Number 4,
Starring James Carey.
yes, James Carey, Liam
Yeah,
Neeson.
Neeson, right? Is that the fourth one?
That's the fifth
Fifth one.
That's the 5th one. Is that the last one?
And Patricia.
Yeah.
Patricia Clark.
Because it got its ass kicked by
Yeah.
Die Hard, which
Yep.
opened around the same time in July of
It's a
1988.
fun movie. It's a fun movie.
Oh no,
like
it's my
that one.
second favorite of the series.
Yeah.
I have a giant blind spot with these. I've only seen Dirty Harry. I've never seen Enforce or Sudden Impact or that other one that I can't think of the title.
They are The Enforcer.
The Enforcer.
Enforcer sucks.
They are interesting in that I think the first 3 sequels basically serve as quasi apologies for criticisms that were logged against the first one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, the second one definitely.
Yeah, but even the 3rd and 4th, and then by 5th, the Deadpool, they're basically out of things to apologize for. So it's just a fun romp.
Yeah,
Which one has the remote controlled car bomb?
5. That's the Deadpool.
That's 5. Yeah, I mean, the Deadpool is probably the only Dirty Harry movie I would qualify as being fun.
Yeah,
What that's worth.
it's a mystery movie. Like it's like a kill. Yeah, it kind of borrows from like the killer doing hits around town from the first one, but in a more fun fashion. Yeah, the first
remote controlled cars.
Yeah. First Dirty Harry is good. I like, Magnum Force is an apology for the first one, but I think it's still a damn good movie. The third one is just really boring, and then the fourth one is kind of like the Rocky IV of the Dirty Harry series. Almost.
It really is. I mean, slight spoiler. That's where the line "Make my day" comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing much to it.
That's like the one thing I know, that the fourth one has
Yeah.
that the line that's associated with the character. It's by default you think is that in the first one. It's not until the fourth one he actually says that.
Yeah. It's one of the high profile. What was her name? Eastwood's
Sandra
wife.
Locke.
It's one of those. It's one of those ones where he directs her and she gets raped in a movie and he has to like revenge. So
Which happens more than once.
it happens in plenty of his movies. Like it's
Still together.
Yeah.
So anyways, number 4 is Turning Point on ABC. Number 5, 2020 ABC. Number 6, Home Improvement on ABC. Number 7, a tie between Roseanne and Seinfeld. Number 9, Unsolved Mysteries on NBC. And number 10, Coach on ABC.
Huh.
So, with the Farrah Fawcett movie up there, somebody had married a murderer of children attempted. This time, someone's going to marry an axe murderer. So
that was a heartfelt segue.
I married an axe murderer.
Kiss the beautiful bride.
This summer,
Let's get fresh!
Mike Myers takes a whack at marriage with Nancy Travis, Anthony LaPaglia, Amanda Plummer, Michael Richards, Stephen Wright.
What are you doing? Wake up!
And Mike Myers. So I Married an Axe Murderer.
She's quite a filly.
Starts Friday at a theater near you.
Directed by Thomas, is it Schlam?
Tommy Shalami.
Tommy Shalami. He's a career TV director and comedy specials is what he's done. Written by Robbie Fox, who'd go on to write In the Army Now and more recently Granddaddy Daycare. But this had extensive rewrites by Mike Myers and Neil Malarkey to the point where they were taking it to like court and stuff to try to get credit. Starring Mike Myers, Nancy Travis, Anthony LaPaglia, Amanda Plummer, Matt Doherty, Charles Grodin, Phil Hartman, Debbie Mazar, Stephen Wright, Brenda Fricker, Michael Richards, Greg Gurman, Kathy Griffin, and Alan Arkin.
Phil Hartman.
And Phil,
which now always makes me sad.
I did say Phil Hartman.
Sorry, apologies,
Scott. Jesus.
Jeez, thanks for the repeat. A San Francisco poet who fears commitment suspects his girlfriend may have a knack for killing off her significant others. I have always been a pretty solid fan of this movie, but Scott, how do you feel about it?
I never liked it. And again, I'm not going to, fire and brimstone here. But for one thing, I find the whole beat poetry thing incredibly annoying. And I don't know if we're supposed to find that endearing or not.
I find it funny. Like it's a knock on the beat poetry. It's not heartfelt.
But other than that, I mean, it's fine. I never found the film particularly funny, and the resolution seems to raise more questions than it answers, frankly. But it is interesting watching Mike Myers do what in many ways feels like a dry run or a dress rehearsal or a workshop for some of the stuff he would do, I would argue, to much greater effect in Austin Powers a few years later. This is obviously his one for me picture after Wayne's World, and that's fine. It's obviously very personal to him. And it's a comedy that doesn't make me laugh very much. So, and I don't find the story all that engrossing. So because of that, it doesn't do much for me.
All right. There Scott goes again. Aaron.
Podcast. We are recording, and it's never boring, even when Scott's mic screws up. Thank you.
You're not welcome.
This movie making me laugh. What do you want me to say? Like, I'm not gonna say it's a classic comedy. I'm not gonna say it's one of Myers' top actually, I mean, by default, it might be one of his top comedies.
It's the Love Guru.
But it's like what I am saying is it's not Austin Powers, but it's genuinely very funny, and a lot of that's because of the stacked cast of comedic players in there. I mean, if you don't laugh, you don't laugh. I mean, it's subjective. It's comedy. Like, it's if you're not on the wavelength of the humor going on here, then there's nothing really you can do about it. It's just, it's not base emotions. It's just like jokes. Like the plotting itself is silly, much like most Myers comedies. So it's hard to get like wrapped up in how much sense this makes by the time it wants to, have some kind of story resolution. But I'm not concerned at that point. Could I say that the first 2/3 are better than the last third? Sure. But regardless, I'm laughing consistently in this movie. I've always laughed watching this movie. I was happy to revisit it again and just realized how many bits that I like in this, so many things that pop up that I know are coming, but still make me laugh. Small things like the whole stuff with Michael Richards in the one office, and it builds to a point where he just yelling at everybody. He's like, "Look at the insensitive man," and it's just really funny. The thing that always gets me is the Phil Hartman scene, because Phil Hartman's just a comedic genius, and this is another big Philly weekend after Coneheads last week. But 2 Philly weekends in a row. I like that I've seen the TV version so much, where the story he gives about the thing on Alcatraz, it's like heavily edited. So like watching this version, like, oh yeah, that's right, it's more explicit in the actual as far as what he's saying. It's like some really hard edits on that movie. Myers, I think, is generally very fun here. You don't see him ever doing this after this movie. Like even Wayne's World 2, it's still like, it's satirical or whatever. He's just playing basically a version of himself to some degree, where everything else it's costumes or what have you. So like seeing him, unless I'm missing something dramatically, like I guess Pete's Meteor, but no one knows that movie. No one knows that movie at all. So like seeing him do this in this mode, it's like fun. Obviously, though, he gets to also play his own father, which is, again, hilarious. I mean, there's just like between him and Eddie Murphy, which is funny that they both would go on to team up together. But like this whole like let's play multiple roles in a movie thing, it works. I mean, there's a reason why it worked, because it's funny. Like, it generally amuses me to see that happen. But like again, all the side characters, like Alan Arkin stuff, kills me. Anthony LaPaglia, I think there's something I noticed this time around. There's so many scenes of him, of LaPaglia and Myers, like just especially as the father, where they're just together, and you can see the genuine joy he's getting of just being next to Myers, like watching him as the father, because like naturally a human being would laugh at this ridiculous father character, and so they're not like cutting out away from him laughing, because it's like of course he'd be laughing. It should not be that. It's stuff like that. It just puts me in a good mood watching this movie as a rom-com that like has this weird like tries to be Hitchcocky and edge thing going on, but it's like it's not there, but it doesn't require it because it's a comedy. And it's, you mentioned Tommy Schlamme, he is a legendary TV director. Like the Walk and Talk in West Wing is very much like his thing. Like that's that's one of his big claims to fame. He's directed so much TV. There's some, I'm not going to argue that this is an amazingly directed movie, but there's some cleverness.
It doesn't feel like it's from a TV director. Like there's a lot of times where you're like, did he do? Yeah, he did TV. This
like
one,
now,
like,
nowadays you can see like the sitcom lighting going on or what have you. This movie has some, like even the opening shot, it's a big, tracking shot in the city of San Francisco that goes to like a small coffee shop, and it's on the giant cappuccino mug, and it's like, we don't need this shot, but here it is. It's like, so there's like stuff going on that I appreciated, and just that it's in San Francisco, it's like, which just feels different for a movie. Like it is, you don't, it's not LA or New York, so, and it's filmed there. So
yeah,
no, I enjoy this. This is constantly enjoyable to me.
Yeah, and it's a unique San Francisco. It's not like a showboaty San Francisco like all the other ones. It feels like a lived-in San Francisco that I like. Yeah, I've always liked this one. I don't feel like this is like some. I like it more than most, I would say, and I recognize that it's kind of like a medium tier, like in the terms of like comedies or greatness with it. I think Mike Myers, like in the '90s, he's one of my all-time favorite SNL cast members, and he was just like a genius comedically with like his joke setups, his characters, like things like that. Like I loved that. I'm surprised we didn't get more exposed and more movies based off stuff he did back then. He was very selective. And this, like you said, Aaron, this is a unique situation where he's like the straight guy doing his stuff. He's not a super character doing everything, unless you're talking about the father, which is a hilarious, like odd, just like an odd, like, because he doesn't play anybody else in it. He's just like the father, and it's pretty funny.
Which would go on to like, because the father mentions the Pentaveret, which just became a series on Netflix. By all accounts, a terrible series on Netflix, but it actually became a series on Netflix.
Right, and then I mean, he used that shtick to, be Fat Bastard later on.
And Gold Member,
and Gold Member. But I think Mike Myers from like SNL, Wayne's World to like Shrek is just awesome stuff coming, like hilarious stuff coming out of him.
If you're a fan of Mike Myers, you certainly get a lot of good Mike Myers stuff, and the fact that he's selective, I think, makes it more, I don't know, unique because of it. Like you get Jim Carrey movies every year for like 10 years where Mike Myers like pops up and he's like, hey, it's Mike Myers, that's fun.
Well, and this one sticks out big time when you're looking at it. It's almost like it could almost be forgotten because like, oh yeah, SNL, Austin Powers, Wayne's World, Shrek. Like, well, there's this little axe murderer comedy, and then the Studio 54 that movie that came out. But I love.
I'm surprised this one isn't produced by Lorne Michaels, by the way. I was like,
no,
this feels like it would have been produced by Lorne Michaels, but it's not, which is impressive.
And I love the little bits like when he, like the next morning after he stays the night with Nancy Travis, and he wakes up with Amanda Plummer there. I love him and Amanda Plummer together. Like when he's walking around in his underwear, embarrassed, and they're sitting eating breakfast together. Like some funny stuff. Like his
that cutaway joke when she says all the things about breakfast, then it just cuts to him.
Right.
I didn't have any of those other things.
Yeah, I didn't have any. And the thing, I think one of Mike Myers' strengths is reacting to outrageous people in a way that's not like just his like understated reactions to like crazy people and things, and that's all over the place here. This has a favorite cameo of mine. Charles Grodin is
Big Chuck Summer.
Yeah, Big Chuck Summer. Here, like that, he's like the tapping. Oh no, it's my favorite sound. Like I like that. Nancy Travis, is she like blonde Andy McDowell. Is that what she basically is?
Yes.
Like, I feel like they give off like the same kind of thing. So the Poets Corner Hotel in this is Scott. I'm surprised you didn't have a fondness for this movie. It's where Stacey Sutton lives in A View to a Kill. So didn't know it's a family classic over there, and it's from Phantasm as well. So, but Scott, you
I
said
just watched Phantasm for the first time recently.
That's good
With the
stuff.
kids, I assume.
It's interesting.
So Scott, you said this is a passion. I don't know this is a passion project because this was floating around well before Myers got to it because it was.
Well, I don't know. It feels like a very personal one for me kind of picture.
He took to it, but this was written for Chevy Chase.
I like this version better.
And then it went through like Woody Allen touched it, Albert Brooks, and Martin Short before it got to Mike Myers.
His voice is obviously all over it, but like,
that's what I mean. I mean,
he scrawled all over. Yeah, he's like, all right, if I'm going to be in this, I'm going to change it. We know historically now that Mike Myers is very hands-on with the things he works on. But like, yeah, like there's a lot of people that go through. Like Sharon Stone was going to be in this, but she wanted to play a dual role, and then
which I think is a clever idea.
It is a clever idea.
That's a fun idea.
How do you think she feels when she gets like she quits because she's not allowed to play a dual role, and then goes to see it, and Mike Myers is playing a dual role. Like, but like
and she's in Sliver.
Yeah. Brooke Shields, Kim Basinger, Emma Thompson, Nicole Kidman all passed on this movie.
Kim Basinger was like, "I'll wait for Dana Carvey, please," and then he was in World War II.
Yeah,
4 months later.
And the funny thing is, LaPaglia, Mike Myers wanted Dan Aykroyd for it, and then David Spade was offered it, and he chose Coneheads. And Lorne Michaels suggested he do this and not Coneheads. Apparently.
I think it worked out because I really like LaPaglia in this movie.
Yeah, I do. And it's like
not an actor who appears in a bunch of stuff where LaPaglia's here, but in this movie, I really like him.
Yeah, and then I guess Steve Guttenberg was offered this the
Goot
too. Yeah, the Goot. But yeah, no. So it went around. It changed a lot of hands. But yeah, this is. I think it's a fun movie. Like, does it make a lot of sense? Yeah, I don't need it to. I just kind of need it to wrap up. And there's funny stuff with her chasing him on the roof and stuff. And Amanda Plummer, like, she was like go-to female psychopath back in the day, wasn't she? Like, there's not a lot of like, even like her normal role, like Fisher King, she's still weird.
She has like a vibe that's kind of out there, which kind of morphs into Julia Lewis after Cape Fear.
Yeah. True. But this movie's I'm surprised Scott was down on it, but
I didn't hate it. It's never done much for me.
It's the start of Big Plumber Summer, by the way.
Big Plumber Summer, yes. Summer of Plumber. Hooked on the Brothers. We already had Mario, so it is the Summer of Plumbers.
The Summer of Plumbers, yeah. Mario, a movie we were more positive on when we initially recorded some of these episodes, and since then we've seen Mario.
True. Yeah, we have seen Mario now. Might go back and re-record that one.
I have one more poem. As we wrap this.
Okay.
Where is it? There we go. These are stupid. Movies podcast. We sit here and talk, and we think it rocks. Yes, we are bragging. We're not dragging. For movies, we're nerd-y. Thank you.
All right. Well, that leads us perfectly into the Casey Kasem top 10.
Casey's biggest hits.
The top 40 from the top 40 songs of the week. Number 1 this week, stay in there, is Can't Help Falling in Love from UB40. Number 2 is Whoop, There It Is from Tag Team. Number 3, Weak by SWV. Number 4, jumping up 5 spots, is I'm Gonna Be 500 Miles by the Proclaimers. Number 5, Slam da 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 from Onyx. Number 6, That's the Way Love Goes by Janet Jackson. Number 7, jumping into the top 10, is Lately by Jodeci. Number 8, Show Me Love by Robin S. Number 9, Knockin' the Boots by H-Town. And number 10, I'll Never Get Over You, Getting Over Me by Expose. There is a funny thing. A song peaks here at number 14 this week. Woot! There it is by 95 South.
You mentioned that last week that was coming in. Yeah.
Woot! There it is. And woot! There is Robin Hood, Men in Tights.
20th Century Fox presents
Ow! I challenge you to a duel.
the first action hero.
I accept.
And the last word in company.
White men can't jump.
Robin Hood, Men in Tights.
And why should the people listen to you?
Unlike some other Robin Hoods, I can speak with an English accent.
A Mel Brooks film. The legend had its coming. Rated PG-13. Starts Wednesday, July 28th at theaters everywhere.
Directed by Mel Brooks, written by Mel Brooks, J.D. Shapiro, Evan Chandler, starring Cary Elwes, Richard Lewis, Roger Rees, Amy Yasbeck, Mark Blankfield, Dave Chappelle, Isaac Hayes, Megan Cavanaugh, Eric Allen Kramer, Tracy Ullman, Patrick Stewart, Dom DeLuise, Dick Van Patten, Chase Masterson, Mel Brooks, and apparently Danny McBride was in this movie.
When did you read that?
Read somewhere that he mentioned that he was around on the set of this movie. So this is a spoof of Robin Hood in general and Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves from 1991 in particular. So when this came out, I really liked this movie. Friends liked this movie, talked about this movie, but we'll see how we feel now. So Scott, did you laugh at this one?
Nah. I'll be honest. I saw this on opening weekend when I was 13. Actually, no, not opening weekend. I had my tonsils taken out that weekend, but I saw it after. And I grew up loving Spaceballs. I grew up loving Blazing Saddles and The Producers. But this one feels to me like a hybrid of distinctly Mel Brooks humor and the kind of generic non-Zuckerish parodies that would be sort of come into play very soon after. I think the stuff that deals with, sexual repression and what have you is still funny because it's clear that Mel Brooks, still cares about that stuff. I think the actual Robin Hood specific jokes are very hit and miss. There's a lot of, you recognize this thing from this other thing. And even when I was a kid, I never particularly liked those kind of callbacks. I think everybody in the cast is, Cary Elwes is having very good. Roger Rees is obviously having a grand old time. Richard Lewis is basically playing himself, but it's funny. But it's, it was a big meh when I was 13 and it still is. It did lead me to watching for the first time just because whatever, Dracula Dead and Loving It, which I had never seen. And same thing. It's funny when it's dealing with specific, issues with, British repression and what have you and hypocrisy, but a lot of the Dracula specific humor is member berries, for lack of a better word. But so, in retrospect, I mean, for me, I still love Producers, Young Frankenstein, Blazing Saddles. Spaceballs goes in and out for me. It was one of my favorite movies as a little kid. When I watched it in college, I felt it had been very dated. Now that I'm an adult, I kind of appreciate the very specific Jewishness of it that I enjoy. But this one is just sort of one of the ones that just sort of sits there. I don't think it's as bad as, say, what's the Hitchcock one that he did? High
Anxiety?
Yeah, which I never particularly liked either.
Fighting words over here.
But it's certainly nowhere near as accomplished as his 60s and 70s pictures.
Gotcha. Yeah. So we have this and Hot Shots Part 2. Which did you enjoy more for this summer?
I think by default, Hot Shots Part 2, but I think they had a lot of the same problems. And they pointed toward a lot of the same issues with I guess you could call it the 90s generation of spoofs, where they were just more about referencing recent popular culture as opposed to actually making a joke.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of that in, a lot of the non-Zucker Leslie Nielsen pictures, which didn't even occur to me until I watched. But it's like Dracula was the first of those. That's before Spy Hard. That's before Wrongfully Accused and what have you.
Airplane.
And I think Nielsen is horribly miscast in Dracula, but
that's the biggest problem with that movie.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
It's just but Cary Elwes is not miscast at all in Robin Hood. He's actually terrific. I do think it is too beholden to specifically Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and obviously there's a lot of the Adventures of Robin Hood there, and that makes sense because those are the two most popular versions of Robin Hood.
And they have the money for that one to parody more so than Prince of Thieves.
And whatever, maybe they didn't want to get sued by Disney, but I was kind of open for, in retrospect, some shots of the cartoon would have been nice. That's the other one that a lot of people have seen when you think of Robin Hood as a pop culture thing.
Robin Hood, Little John running through the forest. Yep.
But it's harmless. It's well staged. It looks nice. Everyone's having fun. Yeah, I mean, it's not my favorite Mel Brooks movie.
Is it yours, Aaron?
No, it never has been. I'm a huge Mel Brooks fan. Going to Hebrew school and watching Spaceballs many times by default, that makes you a Mel Brooks fan. You're required to be, if anything. That's part of the bar mitzvah that we had. But no, Mel Brooks does it for me. Like I was very happy that History of the World Part 2 worked out for me quite well as well. But I just realized I own every Mel Brooks movie between this and these damn things. So it's like getting Mel Brooks in my life is like, that's great. I wish this movie was better. It's not. I didn't like it when I was younger. I don't like it now. I don't think it's terrible by any means. It's much better than Dracula Dead and Loving It. It's probably better than Life Stinks, but which I guess that's the one I don't own. But honestly, I haven't seen that in forever. But I remember a lot of it quite well. It's like,
that's one that works better as a drama than a comedy. Weirdly enough.
And if it was more successful, we might have seen a different side of things. But Men in Tights, I saw it. I did see it it's the one movie I saw originally when it was released in theaters for Mel Brooks, because I didn't see Dracula in theaters. Or the other ones, because just too young at that point. But I remember I had seen Prince of Thieves, which I also am still not a fan of. So seeing like a spoof movie of that was like, okay. And this is, granted 7-year-old me, but even then it's like, I'm not laughing. But it's like, it doesn't jive in the way that like I had known from like Spaceballs to work on multiple levels as far as being a kid at that time versus now, where yes, I could see why it's not as good as Blazing Saddles or Young Frankenstein, but at least I could still like tolerate it as far as it has a lot of gags, like So I Married an Accident. It's like in that level. This movie it's exactly what Scott said, as far as it has a lot of like, recognize this, well, here it is in this setting, and it's like, that's not very especially clever. I will say I believe this is the movie that this and Dracula are the movies that ruined me on Richard Lewis and Steven Weber, and why I always confuse the two. I think it's because I saw both of these movies and I just they have a similar look to them, despite
and their mannerisms and stuff. That's crazy. I never thought about it till this second, and you said that, and I clicked.
Here's how you tell them apart. Weber was on the TV show Wings, while Steven was not, or Wright was not. And that's all I got.
Nailed that one.
Stuck the landing.
But they are like, despite Lewis being older, they have a similar look to them. But I will say they are both, I think, some of the best parts of these movies. I think Richard Lewis is very funny in this movie. There's a lot of people that are like humorous in this movie. I forgot Isaac Hayes was a Chew's father completely until I watched this again. I do think Cary Elwes is well cast here. I like that he knows how to lean in the right kind of way, where he's not playing it necessarily straight, but he's playing it in a manner that like this fits compared to, like you said, Leslie Nielsen doesn't fit for Dracula. He fits for Robin Hood because it's like, well, he's played Wesley obviously, and we're kind of spoofing off of Errol Flynn, and Cary Elwes has a very Errol Flynn look to him. So
and he doesn't buy into the craziness going around him. He's able to keep with
not too, like, occasionally, and the occasionally is where the movie's like goes really wrong as far as. I find it interesting that this movie is held up by people of my generation as far as like, yeah, that's just as good as the other ones or whatever, in that same kind of like Hook is great realm that I don't buy into at all. Because there's a lot of stuff that I think those same people, if they actually sat down and watched this movie again, would be very offended by these days, given how offended everybody is by things. It's like watching like Robin Hood and Chew do like karate moves all of a sudden and making Bruce Lee noises. Like, what movie am I watching?
Right.
And the Men in Tights stuff, there's no real layer to that as far as like, isn't it funny that we're wearing tights but we're men?
It's like gentle gay panic humor. Even when I was a kid, it was like,
which is
whatever.
very much of the 90s, and certainly not like it's not like, oh my god, this is terrible, I can't believe they got away with it. I'm not saying that, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know what the nostalgia is for this movie beyond like, well, Cary Elwes is a handsome man. Like, I don't know what else is there. So it doesn't like have that grip. Like watching Sawyer Married an Axe Murderer, like I get where the flaws are, but that movie's funny. It works. It hits what it's going for. It has people that are doing bits that work for me. This movie has a lot of like gags that, I mean, this movie wasn't a giant hit then, and I don't know why it would stand up now. It's not a cult favorite. It shouldn't be.
And it's Robin Hood too, so it's like, and it is a specific Robin Hood that's not one that like we sit and go to. Like Spaceballs, it's Star Wars. Young Frankenstein is, Frankenstein, and then Blazing Saddles works as just a solid Western. Doesn't feel like super specific. Like this one, this kind of like it hit in a. This is of the Brooks ones. This is one that like hits in this moment and is like good for like a year or two.
Yeah, and I think it really wears out. I think Brooks himself has worn out the let me take a specific thing and spoof that and then add stuff onto it between this movie and Dracula, where I think the other ones all generally click for me. I whatever. I like Spaceballs a lot, still makes me laugh. I like High Anxiety quite a bit. I get the irony of having a comedy Hitchcock movie for Hitchcock, who already makes kind of dark comedies already, but at the same time, you got some great gags. There's some great gags in High Anxiety. Like it's not
for me, generally speaking, for spoofs, the less there is a specific story structure that's riffing on a known film, the better, the more I intend to enjoy them.
I'd agree.
So it's why I like, among other reasons, I love the Naked Gun movies, because they are original screenplays.
Yeah.
And I think it's
not like I mean, I get you prefer Top Secret to Airplane, but Airplane is like direct dead on to
Airplane is my favorite comedy. I was just lucky that I never knew it was based on anything until much later in life.
I'd argue most people probably don't.
Right. Yeah.
I remember I was in school looking at my English textbook that for some reason there would be a play to say this is what a play looks like or a script looks like, and I'm reading this like 0 hour. I was like, what the fuck? This is Airplane. This is identical to Airplane. What the hell am I reading?
I feel like the most successful version of that is Doctor Strangelove and Failsafe, because I think both movies are fucking great, but they're dialed like minor degrees differently, and it works.
Yeah.
Anyway, Brandon, why do you think this is better than Blazing Saddles?
Oh, it's no, this like I don't know. There's stuff in here that I still think is kind of funny, like when Blinken is fighting with the sword against the post. I like that a bit, but like most of the time I was watching it, I haven't watched this in probably since the 90s, and I was just kind of like, huh. And also, speaking of Wings, Amy Yasbeck in this movie, she was in Wings.
Yes.
Many years. Which I like Amy Yasbeck, but what like.
And she's in Dracula too, so
she worked with Brooks. Like I don't know what we go back to her. Like she was in like Problem Child.
The Mask is next year.
The Mask, like
she's the second lady lead in that movie, not the first.
Yeah, but it's just kind of, and then like, oh, Chappelle's here, and it's like, oh, he's not used quite right.
No, it's like it's his first movie role in it,
right?
And he's never like. Now he's more harnessed acting, but he's never been like those night like people like Half Baked, but he's not like a good actor in those movies. He's just kind of there.
And there's the part with Dom DeLuise, and I'm like, we're still making Godfather jokes here. Like,
yep.
It's I mean,
that's what
crazy.
It gets desperate. I watched that scene of like I'm not averse to. I just remembered the joke I really like, but I'm not averse to seeing Dom DeLuise in a movie, but it's also like really straining, really reaching for stuff here. Before I forget, the one joke I really like is when Dick Van Patten is the abbot, and he's walking on the aisle, and they're all saying hi.
Right.
And the one guy yells, "Hey, I'm Matt!" That kills me. That makes me genuinely laugh very much.
Which I guess somebody sees the Dom DeLuise scene as like, hey, like 5 years later, let's make a full Mel Brooks Mafia type movie with Mafia.
Jane Austen's Mafia.
Jane Austen Mafia.
Exclamation point. Say the title right or don't say it at all.
So,
that's an easy choice.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just kind of Elway's is good here, but just watch Princess Bride if you want this kind of good performance out of him.
Is this the last time he's like a good guy in a movie?
Might be, other than that Operation Fortune, if I recall.
Yeah, but even then he's like a side guy. You know, he's like
yeah.
he's like a lead good person.
No, you might be right.
Yeah,
after this,
Kiss the Girls, Liar Liar.
He's either a villain or a Baxter or like a cad in any other movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the villain in Ella Enchanted. He's kind of a hero, anti-hero in Saw.
Even Saw, he's just like that whiny, like you don't care.
Yeah, he's not a hero.
Like,
you know, he's susceptible to influence in The Crush.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, this is the last time he's like, it's the same thought I have of like Matthew Broderick. Like Ferris Bueller's the last time he's cool in a movie.
Yeah.
Like he's never cool again after Ferris Bueller.
And I think it's a case of where, you know, this he's so defined by The Princess Bride when you think of Cary Elwes, but that's one of the only times he did that.
Which is wild to me that he wouldn't consistently play like dashing hero characters.
Yeah.
And by all accounts, he's like the nicest guy in real life. So it's like, this guy should like, I'm glad he's had a great career and he has a family, whatever, but it's like, man, he really just didn't become the hero after that movie.
All right. Wanted to challenge himself. Also, I do like, one of the brilliant moves here is I like how they replaced Sean Connery from Robin Hood with Patrick Stewart. That's, I don't know. There's some kind of genius move there. That
I remember
does
when
a Scottish accent when he comes on. That's what made me this time, because I never noticed that before. He's being specifically Scottish when he first gets to screen. That's really funny.
It's like when he was cast as the poop emoji in the Emoji Movie, or whatever the hell it's called. Everyone was like shocked and oh my god! It's like, have you paid attention to anything that Patrick Stewart time?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he fucking, he's in American Dad. He narrated Ted. He was in a Mel Brooks movie in the 1990s. He clearly likes this stuff.
He like to make a funny.
Yeah.
He can make a funny. Yeah. But yeah, so I thought it was funny too that this summer we have, I mentioned Hot Shots Part 2, but both of them, the promotional poster image is the lead with a bow and arrow.
The Summer of Arrows.
Yeah.
And like the one with Hot Shots is like the chicken or whatever. And then this one's like, oh yeah, one arrow. We got like 6.
Yeah, I like that that's both one scene in the movie, but it's like, this is the iconic shot right here. This is what we got.
Right.
Which I get. And I do think the gag is funny. The execution's whatever, because Mel Brooks doesn't try very hard with these kind of things. But like, it's there. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
I do like Hot Shots Part 2 a lot more than this movie. I
did. I liked it quite a bit better. And because this one, like Hot Shots Part 2, like it's narrative and adventure kind of plays nicely like a movie. And this one's just kind of like, I guess we're doing things from Robin Hood stuff. Here we go.
Yeah, it's very slapdassical.
Here's this scene and here's that scene. Yeah. I
feel
feel like
the Roger Roos bit of as the sheriff of Rottingham, where he says words backwards, that never works for me. Like it's especially because like the first time it's okay because it's like just 2 words, but then it becomes like full sentences, and it's like we're belaboring this joke a lot. This is not working.
Yeah, and I feel
Tracy Ullman though innocent. Tracy Ullman,
yeah,
do whatever you want to do. That works.
I feel like Richard Lewis is here. It's great, but like I feel like he's on a leash too. Like he could have been a lot better than he was. Which I only knew him mostly know him now from Curb Your Enthusiasm. But like he had a sitcom with Jamie Lee Curtis in the 80s. That's what I would remembered him from. But
that's decades long stand up comedian.
Yeah, I mean, he has a very specific persona.
Right.
Which is this to a T. I mean, he's basically playing himself.
Yeah.
You don't hire Richard Lewis to play a deep dramatic character. You hire Stephen Weber to play Jack Torrance on The Shining.
Right.
Although if you want to see him unusually good in a comparative role in a film that's still a comedy, you ever see Amy Heckerling's Vamps?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like really good. I mean, it's weirdly sweet and sincere in a way that he usually doesn't get to play all that much.
Oh.
Anyway, digression.
The Michael Lerner role for is it Dan? Which one's in Clueless and which one's in the Clueless TV show? Is it Dan Hedaya in the movie?
Movie.
Dan Hedaya is in the movie, yes.
And then Michael Lerner's in the TV show.
Yeah.
I always Donald Faison stays the same. Dan Hedaya changes. Got it.
Yeah. So yeah, this movie is just kind of like it's like when you're going through the Brookses, you might stop here.
It's also long. Like it's not paced well. That's what kept getting me.
It's true.
Not zippy. Like
it's 110 minutes.
One thing if it moved, but because it's so devoted to Prince of Thieves, which is a boring as hell movie, it sucks. Yes. Because it's 2.5 hours, it takes for fucking ever to do anything, much like Hook.
Okay, yes, that one I'll give you.
All right.
This movie very much follows that plot. So it's like, I don't need
yes, absolutely.
It to be an hour and 45 minutes. Make this 80 minutes tops. Like this is not dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
Prince of Thieves rocks.
Yeah, I'm as angry again as I was with Tom and Jerry.
Yeah. Speaking of angry, let's check in with Yancy for Yancy's Tales from the Video Store.
In nomine Patris.
Quebec, 1634. What happens when the ambitions of the old world come face to face with the mysticism and savagery of the new? From Bruce Beresford, director of Driving Miss Daisy and Tender Mercies, Black Robe, rated R. Now at select theaters, starts Friday at a theater near you.
One night at Archive, when I was working at Archives with Robert and Steve, there's a lot of characters here. We were working one night, and a sort of attractive young graduate student came in and told us she was writing something about Native Americans, or she needed to see a movie that was about Native Americans, the Native American experience. Steve and Robert were both very eager to serve her, and Steve went running over to the B section of the dramas, and Robert yelled out, "No, Steve, do not get her Billy Jack." And in fact, Steve had gone for Black Robe, the Bruce Beresford, very sober Indian or Native American movie. Indian, it was like an Oscar wannabe movie that had come and gone in the early '90s. Black Robe, I never saw it, but it's a highbrow sort of movie about Native Americans. And he was going to give that to her. Billy Jack, who, for those who haven't seen it, is, in Steve's words, a movie about a kick-ass biker Indian, played by a guy who I don't think is Native American.
No, it's like an Australian guy. Or no, is he? No. He kind of he did his own stuff, though. He produced all those Billy Jack movies, right?
Tom Laughlin, yeah.
Yeah.
I like those movies, and they're funny because it's only in America when you have a character in a movie who kicks guys to death because they're intolerant.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, I'm actually going back to I'm reading in the middle of Tarantino's book, and he, in his chapter about Dirty Harry, he's talking about the reception of the time and people being upset about what Dirty Harry was doing. He goes, if Billy Jack was doing the same thing, no one would have cared.
Yeah, that's true. I got to read that. I still haven't read it. I do have a last little addendum to that video archive story, which is when I was working there. I remember one night there was nobody there, and I was working by myself, I imagine. I went and I found the little log book they used to log all the season passes. And I looked back a couple of years, and I found my dad's little name in the season pass. And when he bought me the thing, he's been dead a few years by then. And, it was signed in by Chuck, who was the guy that worked there. And I was like, oh, look at that. It was a cool little asterisk at the end there.
All right. Now our big centerpiece, our main event for this episode.
Finally, a comedy that's funny.
Right. Rising Sun.
The suspense is rising. The excitement is building. Sean Connery, Wesley Snipes. In the most thrilling motion picture of the year. From the #1 bestseller. Rising Sun, July 30th. Rated R.
Directed by Philip Kaufman, written by Philip Kaufman, Michael Crichton, and Michael Bax. starring Sean Connery, Wesley Snipes, Harvey Keitel, Hiroyuki Tagawa, Mako, Tatiana Patitz, Kevin Anderson, Ray Wise, Tia Carrera, Stan Shaw, and Steve Buscemi, because it's comedy, right?
It's the first film of Buscemi, which is surprising. Yeah. It feels like he would have been in a lot of films this year, and he's in one.
Having not seen this since theaters, I was shocked to see him.
Right.
I did not know he was in this because back then I did not know who he was.
Gotcha. So when an escort girl is found dead in the offices of a Japanese company in Los Angeles, detectives Webb Smith and John Connor act as a liaison between the company's executives and the investigating cop, Tom Graham. So Philip Kaufman, the director of this, like, I feel like he's got a pretty awesome career, but like a lot of people might be like, huh? When his name comes up, like, motherfucker wrote Outlaw Josie Wales, did the story for Raiders of the Lost Ark, and he writes and directs like Invasion of the Body Snatchers remake, the best one, The Right Stuff, A Bearable Lightness, A Bearable Lightness of Being, Henry and Jude, Quills, like, yeah, like, I feel like you hear Kaufman and like, who, like he's legit.
Yeah, he gets the benefit of the doubt for me forever because of The Right Stuff and Body Snatchers.
Yeah.
But, yes, they made it.
We won't talk about Twisted.
We don't need to talk, which is, well, yeah, we don't need to talk about Twisted.
Yeah. So this one is like, check out Computer Artwork, the movie, for a bit of it. But yeah, so revisiting Rising Sun, Aaron, how'd you feel about the Rising Sun?
I've never seen this before. It's nice to catch up with Wesley Snipes movies I haven't seen before because you always sit on black and it works out. This movie is ultimately not very good, but there's a lot of people in it that I'm like, oh, that's fun. It's a lot more of like, I'm looking at this being like, oh, he's in this too. That's nice. And like, for some reason, I just wasn't paying attention to the credits. So I didn't realize Harvey Keitel was like third lead. So by the time he shows up, I'm like, oh, cool, Harvey Keitel's here. That's always fun. The plot of this movie is, well, they make choices. Let me tell you, they make choices for this mystery. And a lot of them hinge on doctored footage, which is interesting. I don't know what like my takeaway is supposed to be in all this. Like, if they just wanted to like impress me with showing that Sean Connery learned Japanese for a few months so he can be in this movie. But like, there's by default there's star charisma and energy between Connery and Snipes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if like in '93 people were like, Connery, Snipes, finally these two are together, as if we've been waiting for that. But I don't like it doesn't do much for me beyond like, well, now I know what that looks like, I guess.
I mean, this is a big year for Snipes. There's Rising Sun, Boiling Point, and Demolition Man. So this is like so
yeah, good. I mean, again, good on Snipes. Happy to see Snipes in movies, but like, because he's great. He's a movie star. He knows how to do it. But
Boiling Point was unusually good for some. I mean, it was basically sold as a boilerplate thriller, but Dennis Hopper was giving an interesting performance in that picture.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but yeah, this like the mystery involved, like, again, it's like I don't know what we're ultimately trying to get to here based off like where it goes as far as the why of it all, because we get answers but it's about corporate espionage to a degree, and it's like I don't care about any of this. And, like, it's dealing with the seedy side of LA, which I always screw up because I always think of what's the other one with Connery and the West
Just Cause?
Not Just Cause, because that's like the Bayou or whatever. No, the other one, that's in San Francisco.
The Rock?
No, the Presidio.
Oh, right.
Presidio.
But no, it's just like it feels like ultimately like just a nothing of a story that they're trying to tell here, where you could make strong arguments that it's doing worse for the Asian community than better, despite the fact that it heavily involves like, Asian actor, Japanese or what have you. But it's like, what is this amounting to? So I don't know. Like, it's it's a relic of the '90s that it's like, if you didn't see it before, you're not missing much now.
No, sure. I wasn't allowed to see this movie because of the like sexual kill violence thing that my parents wouldn't let me see it for some reason. So, and I never went back to it till now. I've seen it. for this movie, which it's got a very underwhelming resolution.
Yeah.
To all this, to the mystery being solved, so that doesn't help. I think there's a far more interesting movie that I thought I was getting. I was like, oh, this is gonna be a movie where these two show up on the scene and we solve the case here. Like, I thought it was gonna be this movie where they're in this building, Sean Connery, Wesley Snipes, to pick up each other, they learn each other, but the whole movie is gonna be going floor to floor and like solving this case in a couple hours. Like,
with like Snake Eyes.
Yeah, like something like that. But no, it doesn't. And then it gets tedious and then has a convoluted mess up of like this footage. And Tia Carrera is like this like supermodel that knows how to do computer artwork or something.
Well, she has glasses.
Because she has glasses. So like, woohoo. Snipes has got some family shit going on with custody or whatever. Like, it's really
which is
weird.
really extraneous to all. Like, it's just like there's so much stuff in this movie.
They want us to believe like Sean Connery's gonna wind up bad or something. Like, he's got cool lines. He's got an interesting character that amounts to like nothing at the end of the day. Like, there's some sort of intrigue. Snipes isn't learning off of him. Like, he's not like it's a weird. There's like
there's no mentor aspect to this. It's
there's
just
no
like,
mentor. There's no weird history or edge with Connery, but like it's written as such. And the man shows up. He does his job. He's fucking awesome. Like, he's Sean Connery.
I can see why he'd be interested in this part. It's just the story itself feels like, because this is a Crichton book, right? It feels like Hoffman and Crichton. It feels like they clashed in trying to like rework this.
And we've got a nostalgia now for like where people are like, oh, don't make them like they used to in these like adult thriller type things, but they weren't all good. They weren't all like, because like we had The Firm, we have In the Line of Fire, and now we have Rising Sun.
Sometimes they're jade.
Sometimes they're jade. But I mean, this could have used that car chase. So
it's true. Fine. Sometimes they're Color of Night. Does that work better?
There you go.
Which is now in the Criterion Collection, by the way, for the streaming channel.
The streaming channel. So
let's go make that clear first here. It's not in the Criterion Collection.
It's on this channel. It's not on the Criterion Collection.
They haven't put it on disc yet. So
they said, "Would you read the essay?" And I said, "No."
The thing that helps this movie a lot is the actors.
Sure.
And that really helps. A lot of it being entertaining and stuff, but it does start drawing out. The mystery like starts interesting, but like the whole time, like it was so weird because it's like, this is gonna end up being Ray Wise, isn't it? It's gonna end up being Ray Wise because him and Carrie hair and their statures are so similar, and they do the scene with the behind, they can't see when they're like having sex on the table. I'm like, it's gonna be freaking Ray Wise. It's gonna be Ray Wise. And I was like, oh no, I guess not. It's not Ray Wise. But like even the business and why people are doing stuff is convoluted and uninteresting, and just I don't know. There's a skeleton that's interesting of this movie, and a couple like characters written interesting, but it doesn't. The soup isn't very. I mean, you put some ingredients in it and some different spices, but I still just tasted regular chicken noodle soup when I.
Side note: we should definitely do a commentary for Snake Eyes.
Yeah. I love Snake Eyes.
I also I don't, but it's an interesting movie.
Yes, it is. So Scott, is it?
Oh, this is probably one that is. I was looking forward to watching it because I saw it on opening weekend when I was 13, and I thought it was a solid picture. I even read the book. I don't know if I'm even alone in this, but the summer of '93, after seeing Jurassic Park, I read a shit ton of Crichton that summer.
I get my hands on this Crichton. Dinosaurs. Oh my god, what's next?
Yeah.
Japanese businessman. Fuck yeah.
I read Sphere and Congo. I didn't get to Rising Sun.
I read almost everything. But watching it now, it's like, I don't want to say, oh, it's dated badly or blah, 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 because it's cliche, but yeah.
It has.
I mean, I think the movie might have been better had it been a Japanese protagonist that was showing him the ropes.
Mm-hmm.
just because it's this weird skewed thing
not Sean Connery.
Yeah, not noted Asian American Sean Connery. And again, the movie never pretends that he's anything but Sean Connery, but it also has this weird thing. Like, why is he the expert in Japanese culture?
Every friend our expert, like they shuffle past multiple Japanese men.
Yeah, it's like he doesn't really
Scottish man.
He doesn't really offer much in the way of wisdom or advice that's so fantastical that he needs to be here or this crime won't get solved.
Does Tia Carrere quote Art of War or something at one point? Because I'm thinking,
yeah, she does.
Going to be in that later. That's another movie.
I forgot how little she was in the movie. I remember having a much bigger part,
but
she's only in like 2 or 3 scenes.
Crucial part though, because she does this.
Yeah,
right.
And it was far less happens in the movie than I remembered.
Yeah,
I mean, first of all the stuff that I remember is all in the third act. The big fight scene where how do you pronounce his last name? Help me here.
Connery.
Yes, Snipes. But he gets beaten to death by his own people and has his throat slashed. That to me felt like something that happens halfway through the movie, but it's almost at the end.
Yeah.
And the big reveal of who
he dies like twice in this movie.
Yeah, he dies twice.
So.
And the big reveal about who did it and why is, I know they changed it from the book, so the villains weren't Japanese, but it doesn't matter who did it because the solution is so almost irrelevant.
Based off what it's going for. That's why, like you're saying, Brandon, like the skeleton of this movie, there's something there, but they don't know what to do with it to make it really interesting, which is odd to me, given that you have Philip Kaufman, who knows how to do this sort of thing. Who knows how to structure plots around this sort of thing. So it's like, I don't know what happened here, but it feels
I think
it feels like a battle.
Again, I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but remembering the book was a relatively rote political thriller that was mostly Crichton waxing at large in a not necessarily xenophobic jingoistic way about the theoretical encroaching business threat from Japan. Again, I would argue the book did not get into that much yellow peril, but maybe I was 13 and naive about that kind of thing. But it was like, okay, here's this bare bones plot, and now I'm going to monologue through these characters about how Japan does it versus how America does it, and many of the ways in which Japan does it better. And here's what we need to deal with if we want to be as strong as them on the business stage. In the same way that I think it's Mainframe, is basically it's a plane crash drama, but it's basically an excuse for him to explain everything he knows about the airline industry.
Well, also I did read that Michael Crichton and Michael Bax quit the film because Kaufman suggested one of the leads be black.
Yep, read that.
What's the name of the airplane movie?
Big Michael Summer.
Yeah, really.
Airframe. Mainframe is
real pivotal in the plot there.
Yeah,
but yeah,
changed the whole thing.
And yeah, there's not as much movie in this movie as I remember there being. And sometimes when I will watch an older thriller like that, I will realize that to a certain extent, my nostalgia for the good old days is just that not every movie was as filled with movie as, say, Face Off, for example,
because you have a lot of
Contact.
Because you have a lot of character actors here, so it kind of helps you get past it. But it's like they're only doing so much. Keitel can only stand outside of a building and say, "This is what we're going to do" so often before it starts getting boring.
Yeah, he's got a boring part.
He walks in and he talks tough because he's Harvey Keitel. I'm like, cool, right? But he doesn't really do anything in this movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not as good as I remember it being. Alas.
Bow when you're bowed to. That's what I learned.
I did watch Just Cause for the first time with Connor and Lawrence Fishburne. I liked that movie.
Yeah, that was not bad. I remember liking that back when it came out.
It's got some neat twists in it that I didn't expect. So in the realm of 90s Sean Connery histories, that's the one that I'd speak up for in the summer of 95.
Yeah. Yeah. Tatiana Patit's the victim in the movie. She passed away this year.
Oh.
Back in January. And I was like, oh, because I was like, what is she? She looks so familiar. What is she in? She's not in much at all. Like, she's more of a model. And then I saw that she passed away. So I was like, oh, that's sad. The computer art here they use is like really more advanced for 1990, 93 than I thought.
Yeah, this is a real precursor for Black Hat.
Yeah. So cool. But yeah, Rising Sun. Yeah, this one I was looking forward to checking out. I'm not mad I checked it out, but like just kind of
same.
Kind of difference. Disappointed.
Yeah, this is the second least bad movie I watched this week.
Right. But yeah, so let's see. Let's turn our focus now from this discussion to see how Rising Sun and the rest did at the box office. Scott?
Rising Sun was the #1 movie of the weekend, opening in 1,500 screens with $15.2 million. The $30 million budgeted, I think. Let me check that. $40 million budgeted movie grossed $107 million worldwide by the end. 63 of that in North America alone. In the Line of Fire would be #2 again, with $8 million, dropping just 29% for a $68 million 24-day total. The Firm also dropping 29%. There's strong holdover business here, with a couple exceptions. Earning $7 million to bring its total up to $125 million domestic. Free Willy would drop a whopping 18% in weekend 3, $7 million for a
Hold like the River Jordan.
Indeed. 35.3 million in 17 days. Good old Jurassic Park is still sticking around.
Crichton
#5.
Crichton.
Indeed. Yeah, that's the first time an author has had 2 movies in the top 5.
We could probably look that up.
Yeah, probably. Because I know Nicholas
King was
Sparks
all the
movies
rage in
aren't
the
that...
80s. Didn't Stephen King had something like a couple back-to-backs?
I don't know. His films, I mean, he wasn't box office until like the 90s. Anyway, whatever.
There's a lot of 80s Stephen King movies.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there were a lot of Stephen... Anyway, whatever.
The 90s where his movies started going...
Yeah, where people think are going to be treated as prestige all of a sudden.
Well, people didn't like Thinner as much as you did, but...
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that?
People didn't like Thinner as much as you did.
Hey, I think the first half of Dreamcatcher is pretty good. It's the second half where it shits the alien.
It's all bad.
Yes. Anyway, Jurassic Park, 6.9 million minus 18%, $283 million after 8 weekends in theaters. Our other opener, Robin Hood Men in Tights, opened with just $6.8 million over 3 days, over a $10 million Wednesday to Sunday opening weekend. The film would earn $36 million domestic on a budget of... Sorry, I had this open, but then I closed it.
Robin Hood?
And $100 million in rentals.
Maybe. A $20 million budget made $72 million worldwide, so they were very happy with it. And he says that Spaceballs and Robin Hood Men in Tights were the most rented pictures he's ever made. Poetic Justice, unfortunately, took a 57% drop in weekend 2, earning $5 million for a $21 million 10-day total. Sleepless in Seattle, still sticking around, $4.9 million minus 15% for a $90 million 6-weekend total. Coneheads dropped 50%, $3.5 for a 14.4 over 10 days. And in 10th place, another Stakeout, dropping 35% for 3.5 million for an underwhelming 11.7 million after 10 days. Elsewhere in the top 10, or the top whatever. So I Married an Axe Murderer, underwhelmed with just $3.5 million in 1,300 screens. It would eventually earn approximately $12 million on, I believe, it wasn't a particularly expensive movie.
55.
What was that?
55.
Yes. No, it cost $20 million, so it was a flop. Unlike the first Austin Powers, which was actually a theatrical hit.
Yes.
Not a big one, but yes.
It made $67 million on a 15 budget.
Ooh, The Love Guru made more than So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Gosh,
producer Demi Moore was very happy all 3 times.
elsewhere in the top 10, where the fuck is Aladdin? Why is Aladdin in the top 15 now?
It's back.
It's back. Shit. It was into 798 theaters. What the hell is going on here? What is Disney up to?
Warner Brothers will release something.
They're trying to.
That's what, Disney's up for fuck you, Tom and Jerry, said Disney.
Miramax was sniffing Miramax.
Don't forget who the boss is now. I don't think they own Miramax yet. $1.7 million in its 38th weekend of release. Meanwhile, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs in 16th place in its 2,902nd week of release.
Oh, wow.
Earning $1.247 million, which might be a record for a 2,902nd weekend release gross.
Maybe they did
but I'd have to verify that.
I'm sorry? Maybe they double billed Snow White and Aladdin.
Possibly. You know what? That makes sense. Let's see. Oh, speaking of Tom and Jerry, opened in 15th place with $1.25 million. It would eventually earn, I think it did like $6 million on a $6 million budget. So yay, I guess. Yippee skippy.
Well, the ads were
$3 million on a $3 million, basically. And that is it for the box office in terms of stuff. Groundhog Day is in the top 20 again with in weekend 25. That opened early February, late January of 1993, one weekend after Certified Cult Class. Speaking of a good spoof movie, National Lampoon's Loaded Weapon 1.
As we all know, July 28th is Canadian Groundhog Day, so that's probably why.
Yes, of course.
Right. They're probably doubling it up with Axe Murder or something in drive-ins or something.
Yeah, Sony, yeah.
And that's it for the box office.
All right. Well, that'll do it for this weekend. That was July 30th through August 1st of 1993. Scott and Aaron, thank you for joining me again as we... Oh, it was a tougher one to get through, I guess, surprisingly, though I enjoyed the Axe Murderer movie. Before we head out, Scott, where can people keep up with you?
I'm at therap.com, and I'm on Twitter at Scott Mendelson.
All right. And Aaron?
I'll be performing a podcast-related beat poetry at Poets Corner in LA. I write for
and your TikTok.
Yeah, that TikTok that I was starting. I write for Leave Entertainment for movie reviews, Weiss is Blue for Blu-ray and Criterion reviews. I'm on Twitter at Aaron's PS4, and I host a podcast out now with Aaron and Abe. We talk about the weekly movie releases, and we probably just talked about Barbie and Oppenheimer, which Scott definitely heard all the dialogue in one of them. So yeah.
I opt for Oppenheimer. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Brandon4KUHD. Written work at WhySoBlue.com. Next week, we go on a hunt for the one-armed man, the meteor man, and the boyfriend man is back. All that and more as the summer of 93 at 30 continues.
It's the summer of 93 at 30.
Thank you for listening. The Brandon Peters Show is a Creative Zombie Studios production. Produced by Brad Shoemaker and Brandon Peters. Written and edited by Brandon Peters. Announcer vocals by Jessica Alsman. Theme song by Metavari. Web design and show art by Brad Shoemaker with Brandon Peters. All music and clips featured in the episode are property of their respective studios, and no infringement is intended. The Summer of and News Themes by Press Maxon. Additional information on this and other episodes at thebrandonpetershow.com. For any inquiries, press opportunities, or sponsorship, contact mail at thebrandonpetershow.com. The show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere podcasts are found.